decent car, the last of the Cavaliers. Tough, hardy and sensible value, and the nation likes them a lot. There are over 500,000 of them out there. Vauxhall's workhorse may be one of our firm favourites, but it harbours a dark secret. And it's this. On the last series of Top Gear, you heard me go on about front suspension control arms on certain Cavaliers, Calibras and Astras, how they can suddenly shear to metal corrosion and fatigue, and how a break can spell disaster. Well, viewers have been contacting us with some pretty close shaves.
As I started to brake towards a traffic island, the steering wheel snatched out of my hand and went round towards the right, then the car just slid towards the central reservation.
Touched the brakes when I heard a bang come from the front end. Car veered across the other side of the road.
The car in front braked quite hard. I followed suit, and then suddenly there was a big bang and we came to a stop very violently.
I braked for a roundabout and there was this almighty bang.
Smoke filled the car. It's quite horrendous.
I got out of the car and looked and saw that the front wheel was pushed into the wing.
Tried to move the car off slowly, but it wouldn't move at all.
I was horrified to see the wheel had actually fallen off.
The front wheel had actually been forced back in towards the bulkhead.
The wishbone had broken, and it had also pulled the drive shaft out and damaged the bush at the end of the anti-roll bar.
The consequences could have been disastrous.
With 3 children in the back as well, goodness knows what might have happened, really.
We got back into the car, limped around the island about 100 yards to the place where I actually bought the vehicle. As soon as the chap saw it there, he knew exactly what the fault was, because he'd had several similar complaints within about the last 12 months or so.
Now, you might think these stories are exceptional, but we have had no less than 20 people tell us of their near misses and accidents. And we've also had many, many more write in to tell us of their broken control arms, but also to express their concern at the way Vauxhall have handled their inquiries. And to be perfectly frank, we're a bit confused. Because when we spoke to Vauxhall back in May, they told Top Gear and Vauxhall customers that these control arms have no manufacturing or material defect. But since then, they've examined the broken arm we used in our original programme, plus a number of others. We've seen internal documents that state that control arms have failed due to poor riveting, and that the origin of the control arm should be investigated because it's clearly not up to the specification of approved Vauxhall suppliers. They've told the Department of Transport that someone is copying their part. In other words, Vauxhall dealers have been inadvertently fitting fake control arms. So Vauxhall seem to have got to the nub of the problem, and they're even contemplating taking legal action against the suppliers of the bogus control arms. But the bit that worries me here most of all is that they've yet to tell the people who matter most, their customers, people who are driving round in Cavaliers, Calibras and Astras. In fact, while we were filming this, we rang a big Vauxhall garage in London, and they still insisted that the problem with control arms is ham-fisted jacking with a trolley jack. So what this means is that out there are Cavaliers, Astras, Calibras merrily running around with bits of their front suspension that are not up to Vauxhall standards that could be dangerous. Now, I don't think that is a particularly good state of affairs. Vauxhall in their report also state, as Top Gear has maintained all along, that the reason these control arms are breaking is because of bending and metal fatigue. So as far as I'm concerned, this is one problem that isn't going to evaporate overnight. Because the dirigible size question is, just how many of these counterfeit control arms are around, and how did they get into the hands of Vauxhall dealers in the first place?
This is actually an industry-wide problem. This fake part was sold as an original manufacturer in original packaging, so it's extremely difficult to detect that it wasn't the original part. In this case, we are sure that it's been going on for some years, and there must be probably a few hundred out there, but the manufacturer who we've contacted assures us that this must be a one-off, but we're not leaving it at that. We're doing extensive investigations and testing of this part. At the moment, we don't know how many there might be.
And what are Vauxhall going to do about it?
We are very concerned about owners of Vauxhall cars who may have got one of these parts fitted, perhaps after a front accident. So what we have done, now we've discovered it, we have made up this picture that shows the difference between our genuine part and the fake part, and we've sent this to all our Vauxhall dealers to make sure that they know how to check between a fake part and a genuine part. We are also going to distribute this to all independent garages in the country because we don't know where these parts may have got to.
Now, there must be a lot of very worried Calibra, Cavalier and Astra owners out there. What do you recommend they should do?
Well, I would recommend that if they believe that their car may have been fitted with a control arm at any time in the past, if it was fitted at a Vauxhall garage, then they should contact that Vauxhall garage and we would be very happy to check whether or not that is a genuine part. The likelihood is, though, that many of these parts have gone into the independent trade, and I would recommend that the customers contact their normal service operation to see whether or not they have fitted the wrong part. And as I said, we will have advised them how to identify the fake part versus the genuine part.
And what about people who have already paid out to have replacement control arms fitted at Vauxhall dealers and have had these fake ones fitted? Are they going to be reimbursed?
Well, if they've had them fitted at a non-Vauxhall garage, then I'm afraid that's not something we would reimburse. However, if this part has got into the Vauxhall franchise somehow and they've had it fitted at a Vauxhall dealership, I'm sure that dealership will change it free of charge.
Now, I could rant on red-faced about recalls and why we have to make all this fuss in the first place, but I won't, because the most important thing here is your safety. So the bottom line is, if you own a Cavalier made between 88 and 92, a Calibra made between 90 and 92, or an Astra of 92 to 93 vintage, please, please, please get those front control arms checked. Because if you don't, you could be letting yourself in for a thoroughly disagreeable surprise.